This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. Were there any public comments?
No.
No. Okay. Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes from July? Is there a motion to approve?
All right, I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Great. Any discussion? All in favor? Great. That looks like a consensus. Good. I feel like I have to get a copy of Robert's Rules of Order just after Kyle at our last board meeting. He had 2 copies. I feel like I really need mine. Okay, so do you want to jump into the updating on fundraising?
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually in really good shape. We currently have 11,000 on hand, and we have committed. We are waiting on actually another 3,000. So we have a commitment from Barnes and Noble. We were approved, so we have a commitment from Berkshire Bank. And then just this week, we were contacted by Hops 44. So we're in good shape. And then beyond that, we are still waiting to hear on our application to Price Chopper. So we have met our current plan for expenditures. We're in very good shape. If things continue and we keep getting notified about sponsorships, we might be able to bring other things in, but we're getting right to the point where I don't know if I would recommend changing too much.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, it's a relief considering earlier in the year, we didn't I tried not to make it too obvious, but I was very nervous about fundraising for this event.
Well, so thank you for all your work on it.
Oh, thank you guys. I think the way that we followed up with all of those businesses really led to sort of the strong fundraising campaign. So it worked out, and I'm very grateful that you all helped with that. So thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen to talk about the small donor campaign.
Yeah, so the last time we talked, we had, I was supposed to do a little bit more research on the correct named product of CauseVox. And I did get a little into that, but we've had a different opportunity present itself to us. And after Cynthia and Denise talked about it, we thought this would be maybe a better way to do this for this year. There's a local insurance firm who, the national firm, has a campaign where if you, for like a month, any person who calls and mentions the downtown partnership and asks for a quote, and it's not a commitment on the person calling to purchase insurance, but they have to mention us, we would get $10 from the national firm. And so we think this would be a nice way to do this because it involves a local business owner who's active in the community, and then also if someone isn't able to give, they can still help contribute. And we thought it would be a really, he was kind of thinking either September or October for doing this, but so after talking to him, Cynthia thought maybe if we did September and then the funds can go to the festival. I have to give him a call after we all talk, but I think that might work, and depending on how they structure their donation, maybe we could do a brief recognition at the festival from the main stage, thanking him. So he would be promoting us and his firm, and then we would be promoting it too with some of the provided materials that they give us.
And I would just add, one of the things that we talked about when this came up, I mean, and it did just come up last week, so very recently, we kind of talked about how it might be challenging to have online campaigns for both this opportunity
Oh,
and the small donor campaign. So that was one of the things we were like, well, we don't want to compete with ourselves in sort of promoting these different programs.
yes, thank you for bringing that up because that was an important point that I think you brought up the first time too. And the Cause Vox as a platform, I think might be useful in the future. We do need to do a little bit more research because some of the things that we had talked about wanting to do, like teams and everything, they do offer, but only in the paid version. The free version is pretty simple, but with this local business campaign, it's it's even simpler for us because it's really just asking people to call their office and say that, this is for the downtown partnership. And then at the end of the campaign, they just give us one lump sum.
So would they be, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Would they be the donor campaign and this other way of fundraising really competing, or the donor campaign would begin immediately and then later on you might do this other way of fundraising?
We were thinking we would do the partnership with the local business instead of the small
Oh.
donor campaign.
Oh,
Yeah, one
Which
of
is
the
almost-
things there. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ginny, it's almost better because then we're not asking anybody in town for their actual money, and we're taking money from a big corporation, which is exactly what we should be doing. So,
Sarah.
no, I think that it's like you guys said, though, if someone can't make a donation or they feel like they are in a place where they couldn't, then this company's really stepping up to help out. All of my personal views aside.
no, it sounds
Well,
good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because it has a social media component to it where it will be sort of pushed virtually to sort of help spread the word that this is an opportunity. You can call and get a quote for insurance from a local business, and in doing so, help this community event.
And possibly save money on your insurance.
Yeah.
People are getting money back.
Do they have a max donation or a point where there's a cutoff, or are they committing to donate however many people call?
That's a really good question. I can ask. I don't know if Cynthia asked that question, but I can ask when I speak to him about just getting the ball rolling. And yeah, I'm not sure. We did check with finance that we can do this, and they did give their approval that this would be okay to do. So,
I mean, if I start telling everyone to call and get an insurance quote, are they going to cut us off at some point?
They're not prepared for Emily.
Yeah, remember how. No, this sounds really exciting.
Emily's already got her black book out. She's going through. I'm just like, who can
I know I haven't talked to you in 10 years, but have you thought about your insurance coverage?
I will ask if there's a cap.
Challenge
They'll do it.
accepted.
Yeah, they're going to do it for the entire month.
Yes. Yeah.
That's really generous. Very exciting.
Yeah, and they gave us an example of when a different firm, like a different local office, has done in the state, and so they'll provide us with a kind of a standard sheet with our logo on it and stuff. So I can talk to him about can we get both logos in or just the festival. I think probably the festival will resonate with people a little bit more. They might be willing to do it a little bit because it's something easy to grasp. So I will be in touch with him and then get that all set up. And I think what we'll do is plan for September. If he has a different, if there's any other questions that come up, I can bring it to you guys at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's kind of fun that it can be like the whole month long of September, because I feel like even kind of the week leading up to it, it can be kind of a fun, like, countdown to the event.
Yeah. I'll have to check in with you, Emily, and get some motivational
I mean,
tips.
I don't know. We'll have to make insurance exciting somehow. Yeah, it'll be fun.
All right, great. I think this will be a good test run for us, and then I do think that the other idea was a good one to, and we just probably need to like work out all the details a little bit sooner, and also like the CauseVox, figure out if that's the best for a short-term campaign. It seemed like really good for year-round fundraising, so we might even look into that in general. But yeah, I think this will be a good little beginner course. So thank you.
Great. Was there anything else on fundraising, or do we want to move to entertainment plans?
I think we're good to move on.
Okay. Any updates on the Betsy Patterson stage lineup?
You'll be shocked. I am still waiting to hear back from. So we have a signed agreement with our headlining act. I'm just waiting on approval on photos and the press release. So as soon as I hear back from them on that, we'll get that out there. I do need to do some follow up on our opening acts, but I also have had conversations with the Yukon marching band, so we're working out to see what can we do. They're in a similar position as the high school students, where we now have first year and sophomore students who have never rehearsed together or are just starting. The band did come back for summer, so they are starting now, but it's a very different year for everybody that was remote for the past year and a half. The other challenge with the marching band is the whole band will not fit. So that's just like, that's not going to happen. So we're working out with them what works in terms of their students, what they're prepared to do, what will physically fit in the space. And then the timing of that will kind of dictate some of the other moving pieces. Emily and I spoke really briefly. We're going to meet next week with John and try to nail down the puppet pageant details, which also may look a little different this year, I'm assuming, Emily, just based on different COVID protocols.
I've submitted like a protocol plan to the school, like to the School of Fine Arts, and got some feedback, and there's like some concerns that they want to bring up with environmental health and safety. So it's kind of gotten stuck in its review process, but at least I'm trying to make a plan. I think there's concerns about how crowded it will be and whether the students, we'll do what we need to do. I'm really hoping to make it possible, but I'm just trying to get approval with having an indoor workshop and then the pageant outside.
I would hope the pageant we can spread out on the square, but for the indoor piece, maybe when we meet next week, we can talk about, maybe there's like a town facility that's bigger that we can use. Yeah. My first thought is like, oh, let's do it outside, but I feel like with the art supplies, that's going to be
I know. I thought that was a possibility. I mean, right now we've proposed limiting it to 25 people at a time in the theater and the workshop. I think there's concern over that, so we'll adapt as needed. But I kind of was like, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if it was nice outside? We could just do it in the town square or something. But it's hard to bank on the weather. So
yeah, or the lovely Stores wind.
I know.
So watch the people.
Like, I can ask the Oaks if we can block off the loading dock area behind the museum, because that's at least covered, and we can use that. If people aren't moving in and out, it's been pretty busy lately. So
yeah, they're gonna move in next weekend, so I think
so we should be fine.
Yeah. But there may be some other possibilities, so we can talk about that.
But we're definitely trying to move forward with the collaboration with Joshua's Trust.
Oh, great. And then for the other pieces, we have some initial discussions with some things, but they're not finalized yet. Hopefully soon. I think that's all, unless anyone had any questions.
I do know a acapella group. One of my students' workers was really talking up the Yukon con men. So
Okay.
I don't know if you ever need or I don't know if we can have singers, but you know, like the Yukon choir groups, but
I
they're
think
available.
didn't they do the national anthem last time? Or
They
was that?
did. It's interesting. It's kind of on my list to reach out. Sort of, I was waiting a little bit because I wasn't sure if if the student organizations were going to be back yet. But
Yeah, he says they are. You've met him, Denise. It's Tucker who's at our front desk whenever we're doing those shows. He's in the con men, and he was saying like, oh yeah, they just got the okay to do things, and they're trying to move forward with booking. So
great. So I'll prioritize getting the outreach to the choirs.
That's a good segue into
oh great,
5.B.
yeah, entertainment. Okay.
For street entertainment, we have received kind of street entertainment and children's activities. We did hear back. Johnny Walker has committed for the event, so that's great. We've got him finalized. Emily and I have had some loose discussion of the puppetry students, but that hasn't finalized. I know she and Emily, you and I, we just need to, I think, pick a date when we're both back in the
Talk
office
about it.
and like
Yeah.
work out the details.
I at least so we're thinking in the meantime, I can think you're thinking like a 15-minute show, maybe 2 or 3 different people.
Yeah, exactly. I mapped out kind of how, if we had 3 performers, how it might overlap if we kind of asked them to come for kind of a slightly longer period, but then they were doing that 15-minute show several times.
And then you're thinking Kunzika with the parading puppet would be kind of separate, or are they one of the 3?
Yeah, I think so we have $300 for this.
Okay.
So I would say it would make sense for them to be one of the 3. And I don't know if it's possible to guide the puppetry students on that style of puppetry, sort of something very kind of larger parade style.
Yeah, I don't know if all of them will have something like that. Some of them might have more like smaller scale shows that could be performed. I can see if anyone has a large scale parading puppet. Kunzika worked with Nightfall in Hartford, so specifically like learned with that style.
Okay.
I also know that I was just talking with Paul Spirito from the Puppet Arts Department who used to work on Nightfall, and he was saying like, oh, they would probably come and do that just for fun. So I don't know if that's something that is of interest. But we can always, I mean, I can reach out to Ann Cubberly who runs that to see if, I mean, they're Hartford based, but they have just really beautiful, like huge puppets that, are probably actually pretty familiar to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's something that they might be interested in kind of volunteering to join us, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Unless we think that sort of, because we haven't reached out to the students yet, if we wanted to utilize that $300 budget toward bringing in the group from Nightfall. I do need to double check. They usually perform that first weekend in October.
Yeah, but I think,
so I'm not.
Yeah, I think we checked because Paul was like, oh no, is that the weekend? But I think it's actually the next weekend. So,
okay.
I mean, it could be kind of hectic, but I can talk more with Paul to see if he thinks it's actually realistic. But he kind of mentioned that. And I was like, oh, you know what? I realized we've never reached out to him about it.
Yeah, I think that sounds cool.
Okay.
And it's really impressive, kind of the scale of the puppets.
Yeah, because I mean, it's also then kind of a self promotion for them for Nightfall if it's the following weekend. So it's kind of a nice, cross promotion. But I can also be thinking about Yukon Puppet Arts students, but I just don't know how many large scale puppets like that we'll have. So if you're okay with it, there might be some like more just simple shows that could be performed somewhere. And then, you know, Kunzika could wander around with the large scale puppet.
Yeah, absolutely.
But maybe, maybe you and I can also schedule a time sometime next week just to check in. And we can also chat with John to get some ideas of what students, if that makes sense, to talk more about this.
Absolutely. I'll send you my availability. I'm actually on vacation next week.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry. I know the timing.
Don't be sorry. That's so exciting. I'm home right now. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, great. So the only other thing for street entertainment I did want to bring up, we were contacted by a children's music performance group that we have hosted many times in the past. And they basically they offered to perform in a smaller location rather than on the main stage. I think it would be I think it would be, it's tough because we're recorded. I just don't want to put too much out there, but
I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna help you out. I had a conversation.
okay.
I had a conversation with Kathleen this morning, and I said,
Okay.
I'm super appreciative at the level of input that you and Kathleen ask for and expect from the committees. But you're the pros, so why don't you go ahead and make whatever decision you think is necessary on that. Go ahead and make it.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, so
I didn't mean to speak for everybody else on the committee, but I think, you know, there's you know what, it's your festival, and we are just there to be entertained by it. So.
All right. Thank you. So
You're
I
welcome.
think Kathleen and I will check back in, and at the next meeting, I'll sort of let you know where that goes.
I second that. So if that was a motion, Kyle, I second. No.
All in favor?
No. I was just kind of joking that I do agree. You know, as I'm over here being completely inappropriate while it's being recorded. So, you know, it's all good. For lessons learned, people.
Well, okay.
There needs to be a bigger button hopefully on Zoom. There's a bigger one that says, "This is being recorded."
It's all good. It's all good.
For Sarah's benefit, of course.
It's okay. Okay. I'll own it.
Was there anything else for children's activities?
That is all I had. Sarah, have you heard any?
I haven't
know
heard
it's
from
summer, so it's
right. So I did have a meeting with some of the middle school staff today, and so teachers and staff are coming back. I believe not next week, but the week after. They'll start kind of coming in. So I'll resend that email. I'm actually on vacation next week as well. So kind of when I get back and start getting all my stuff back together, I will resend that to the gym teachers, and see kind of where we're at. Yeah.
Great.
Kathleen, what do you think? Do you think Sarah should include Margaret on that? Because I know Margaret was looking to have the schools involved.
Yeah, I think that would be good, Sarah, if you can CC Margaret, just so that she might still want to do a separate booth. I'm not sure where we landed on her activity idea, but it would be good if she at least knows what they're doing, and if they do it, and then she can also help get the word out from the school side of things.
Yeah, no problem.
So mostly for Emily and Kyle, Margaret Chady is the town's communication specialist, and she also does double duty as the school communication specialist, so we just want to keep her in the loop.
Great. Do we want to move on to the craft booth applications?
Yeah, and so it's interesting. Ginny and I talked a little bit before the meeting. Essentially, we set this up when we started in case we had more applications than we had spots available. So at this point, with 9 applications, we have enough room for all of these booths in the craft section. I just turn it over kind of to the team. Are they all the types of crafts that we want to have represented at the festival? Or do we just want to approve the 9 because it's the 9 that were submitted?
The one that I question, I think my coworker left. I'm taking the mask off. The one that I just question, is LS Designs. I just is that it's not really described how it's handcrafted. I don't know.
Yeah, I think my own sort of thought looking through the photos she submitted is that she might be printing sort of the text and like have the ability to sort of draft and sort of create it that way.
They've posted on other Facebook pages. I believe it's a resin. So she creates them using like molds and then a resin. And so then she can create the different molds and add the text and the images that are on the inside. So because I'm looking at it right now. So like that keychain would be like almost poured into a mold, or like the badge holder, and then they could add the image in the background. So you could pick if you wanted glitter or different colors, because they have been advertising like custom made in like your own. You can get like your name put on it or initials, stuff like that. So I do think it is handmade in the sense that she pours the resin in such herself.
Okay. All right. I just saw pens and I was like, okay, it's hard to see how the pens are, but yeah, I don't know. And then the below the keychain, the first image, I wasn't sure what that was. So I think what's missing is there's no description in the application. So it just kind of is like, all right.
That second picture below the keychain, Ginny, they're cups. So like tumblers, like a drink tumbler that you would drink out of. And so they pour the design like on the outside, and then that's how they can put the name and make it so it's personalized.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And does she do it right there and then? Is that how it works?
So I think what happens is that a lot of so the tumbler would probably be done ahead of time, and then she probably has it's like almost like from a Cricut machine. She could probably cut and then put the vinyl on it. Or she would already have just like pre-made things that people could buy that wouldn't necessarily be personalized. But I do agree with you, Ginny, that, part of what that application was for was to fill out what you have. So it might be worth reaching out to her and asking for a better description. How exactly would you do this the day of the festival? Because again, if she is like pouring resin or something, like, if that's a chemical, I think that there are questions to be asked there.
Yeah.
Just for a better description, just to figure out exactly what kind of products would be there the day of.
Yeah, I mean, if she had filled out that box, maybe we wouldn't have this conversation. But there's no description of the craft. So, yeah, I think that's worthwhile asking those questions.
I forgot to send myself, Denise, the packet. Can you send it to me? Because there was one I had a question on too, but it may be the same one as Jenny. I think, you know, one thing I would just suggest, and I don't know, there's no right or wrong way on this, but I think there's two ways of looking at it. If you have 9 applicants and 10 spaces, then you could just wholesale approve everybody. But if this is something that we think we want to have be a big part of the festival moving forward, you might want to think about not necessarily having to fill all the 10 spots just to have 10 spots, but to have things that you as a committee think are what you intended when you decided to add this element to it. So if it's something that's like really truly handmade or unique or different, or is it something that's like almost not saying that this person is a kit, but like something that could be, you know, less obviously handcrafted or individual. You could just say, you know, I think the description is the description in the what is it called? The application, thanks. Is gives you that latitude to make that decision if you think, you know. So there's like two ways of looking at it, and I don't, like I said, I don't think there's a right way or wrong way. It's just how you guys want to go about it.
Well, one of the things that I noticed is there are a few jewelry vendors, and I mean, I don't know. Is that something that I think there's 3 jewelry vendors, or is it just 2? I guess it's just, well, yeah, 3-ish. Anyhow, that's also like how many, if this expands over time, yeah, is there a limit to how many of one type of craft do you want? Yeah.
Is it helpful to go down the packet and kind of go application by application to see which way we're leaning with each of them?
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to start? Does everyone have the packet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just opening it. Thank you, Denise, for resending it to me.
Oh, no problem.
So the first,
I know you'll appreciate the computer froze when I was trying to attach.
Sarah, I
Agatha
don't know if
Hoover?
you're having these problems, but we have been having ridiculous tech problems.
Yeah, Katie she couldn't open more than one window today. Like if she opened a window and tried to open a second window, like no.
Yeah. Ugh. Okay, I'm glad it wasn't just me because I was losing it. So this, Emily, the first person's name is, it looks like Agatha, it's Agatha.
Oh, thank you, Agatha.
Yeah.
Agatha Hoover. With
So
Frida
I do just want to
Kahlo.
put out there. Yeah, so it's Frida Kahlo, and this is our one craft application that is from Mansfield.
Do we have any strong thoughts about this one?
I mean, me personally, I think that if they're from Mansfield, that was kind of like the idea behind this. So I think we definitely want to accept that one. I think that that's great that they reached out. They're a local. They're exactly what we want.
And they're unique. So yeah, I agree.
Okay. So it sounds like we're leaning positively towards that one. Then
I'm sorry, Emily, I'm going to interrupt again.
Yeah, no, go ahead. No.
Do we want to just maybe identify the artist by like the page in the packet for the purpose of this discussion? Okay.
Sure. So then on to page 6. Does that seem right?
Yeah. Thank you.
With the necklaces, bracelets, earrings.
Yeah, I would go with that.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There's at least 2 or 3 jewelry ones.
Yeah,
This
Agatha
one
has other things besides the jewelry, but yes.
Yeah, this one's
Well,
different than the other, so I think they would be offering two different types of things.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
other one
Yeah.
was like, very colorful, kind of just different.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Great. I agree. I think so positively towards page 6.
and I did just want to put out, this particular person did contact us to say, because we have an application also from their husband, that if we choose one or the other, that it's no problem. Like, she made a point to email me recently to say she understands.
Oh, if one is accepted and the other isn't? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Page 11.
I think this is one I questioned if it met the real handmade
Right.
and kind of goal, but again, like this is, up to you guys, but that was my initial reaction to her.
I do agree with you on that, and it's not something I necessarily would have thought of. But then I lean towards that's just so the style right now. Like things like that are kind of what younger children are like flocking towards.
Sarah, watch what you're saying.
No, what am I saying? No, I'm saying it's a trend. Like,
no,
it's trendy.
I was teasing because you said it's for younger people.
You're
Oh,
younger
no.
people, Sarah.
Oh, no. I just meant it like it's trendy. Like,
I'm
no,
teasing
yeah.
you. I'm teasing
Oh, okay.
you.
I was like, stop. I'm like, you're going to make me all red. Oh my God.
You're saying t-shirts, printed t-shirts is a trend? Is that what you're saying, Sarah?
Yeah. And then the tie-dye, like that tie-dye is so in right now. I mean,
is it?
that's like everything right now is tie-dye. So that's
Okay.
kind of why I could see this being popular, but I do understand 100% what you're saying, Kathleen, is that like that handmade aspect really is not there.
Yeah. I agree. What do you think, Emily?
Yeah, I mean, I think this, I didn't really feel like it felt too handmade. I guess the audience is also, I don't know. Yeah, this one I don't feel as strongly about.
I would just put one thing out there. I couldn't tell. So they described it just as handmade t-shirts. If this was like being silk screened, that is a little more handmade for sort of t-shirt making, but it's hard to tell from the pictures. It looks like the tie-dye is what she's doing as opposed to silk screening the t-shirt, but we don't know.
It's the description section is really lacking. I've noticed that on some of the applications, like, so maybe going forward, asking for, like you do say, describe all crafts, but maybe if the emphasis is on handmade, then asking for how is it handmade? Is this silk screen? Is it some other process? Are you knitting the apparel and then silk screen? I mean, that might help guide decisions then going forward.
Well, and I think that is a good point, Jenny, because it's interesting, Denise, that you thought that the handmade part was the tie-dye, because when I looked at this, I thought that the tie-dye was like the shirt was purchased as a tie-dyed shirt and then the
That's
design
how
was
I'm
added.
thinking it.
Yeah,
That's
how
kind
I'm
of what I was
thinking it
thinking.
too.
Because
Yeah.
if you zoom in on the one picture on page 13, there's a lot of like that kind of personalized things that would be cut or printed from like a Cricut or a computer that's kind of then applied to a product, an already existing product. So that's kind of what I'm picturing the t-shirts as being.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, would it make sense to keep this one? So this was page 11. Do you want to
11.
go through the other ones and come back to that one and see? Because I think
Yeah.
we might have, you know, going forward, I think Ginny's suggestions on the application make sense, but unfortunately we didn't ask those things this time around, so then we just have to decide if it's worth following up. And what is the, does this come back to committee or whatever, but.
Yeah. Do you want to move on for now just to page 14?
Well, you're the chair, so I'm sorry, I keep butting in.
No, it's fine. Please take over. It's fine. Okay. So page 14. I think these things look really lovely.
I agree. I think that is handmade and beautiful and repurposeful, and I love it.
Great. Page 21, it sounds like we will be following up to get more descriptive. Yeah, in many ways, page 21 and page 11 kind of feel similar, and like even though it's t-shirts and other things, but kind of that like maybe cricket like text type of stuff. Yeah. Page 25. I love a good charcuterie board.
That's what I was saying. Again, I'm going to steal your word of lovely. I like all of those things.
Yeah. Ginny, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I'm guessing because they describe it, so they're Sheldon sawmill, so I'm guessing that they mill this wood and then imprint their designs or put on the hangers. So yeah, I think that's a nice.
Yeah, and it says created by us from log to finished piece. I really
Yeah, it is
and
nice.
They did write in outside the box, Ginny, that they're all locally harvested logs.
Right,
so
right. Yeah.
It's
nice, yeah.
Okay, then we're on to page 28.
When I think that, they're definitely handmade. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like that it's Sisters of Charity, because that immediately makes me think they're raising it for maybe domestic violence or something that is supportive to the community. I'm not sure. Oh, they're in Baltic. Okay.
And I will just add, they called the office and they actually asked about selling something else that was pre-made. So I did kind of steer them and say we were really specifically looking for things that were handcrafted.
Okay.
And I mean, these are handmade crafts. They are crafts. They're various crafts. They're going to appeal to different people. Because they're different. They're different than that jewelry and other things that we've kind of gotten. So I do think that it creates a little bit of variety.
Yeah, I would go with it.
Okay. We have page 34. I like this stuff. I could see myself buying some of it. So I would vote yes. But I know there are other jewelry, but this does feel maybe different than the other one.
Again, I wasn't sure, like,
oh, did they make it?
How it's made. I mean, it's nice jewelry, but.
So this is just a guess on my part. I imagine she buys some of the beads and some of the larger pieces, and she puts them together. So for instance, like the picture on page 36 where it's sort of like a skull, for lack of better words, with other pieces, I would imagine she purchased those larger beads and then put it together.
Yeah.
It could be wrong. That's
On
just
her
my
application, she says make them as I go at booth as I sell out, maybe. So are they saying that they are making them on site as they go?
Yeah, she said she was, yeah. And this is someone else who called. She was willing to sort of continue making them as demonstration.
Yeah, that's kind of neat. When you work, because I used to make jewelry, when you work with wire and chains like that, it's actually really neat to watch someone work. Because it's very different than your, you know, just stringing beads. It is really neat
Yeah.
because you have to close those clasps and work the wire, and it is almost an art in itself. So, and it is again different than the other two applications that we got, especially because they note that it's Western inspired, and I think that's kind of neat.
Mhm.
Yeah, I actually
Yeah.
really like that it's all within a theme. I think that's interesting.
I like the idea that she would be creating it as she, like, even if it's not needed, like to show people how it's made in keeping with the rest of the festival. That's a nice aspect.
Mhm.
I do think, Jenny, what might be throwing you off a little bit is it looks like she probably has a little bit more professional presentation because it looks like she has an Etsy store and stuff. So I wouldn't, she like has her own logo and cards and stuff, but I think this does look very, it does look handmade. And
Yeah.
so
Okay. Yeah, I say go for it.
I know we're all sort of, we all experienced the 90s. Is anyone else surprised that scrunchies are back?
Well, I was actually wondering, so these are I mean, sure, you could make them, sew up some material, insert a rubber band or elastic. So, yeah.
Yeah,
They're
I
in.
remember making,
Yeah, they're
I know they're
very in.
very,
It's like a thing now. You know when you used to get like someone's letter jacket, like if the guy wears the girl's scrunchie, it really is a thing. It's
Huh.
like
yeah,
it's a thing. That's how you know.
Okay.
wow.
There
It's
you
just
have
fun
it.
seeing the cycle. Like,
Yeah, definitely. So I
well,
think
going, yeah.
the last one is page 39. I feel like it's unique compared to the other items. So
Mhm.
And
Yep.
again, I really like that idea that it's like taking something that's a byproduct of their normal business and repurposing it into make a really neat craft. Like that's cool.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's good.
So I think we approved most of them. We're going to follow up with page. I can't remember what page number that was.
Beauty and the Bow, and
21.
yeah.
Oh. So we'll follow up with page 21, and then I think were we coming to a decision on page 11? Or is it worth following up?
I would say that the two of them almost would have to be a package deal because they're so similar in the type of product that they're doing. Um, I do agree that in the years to come, if we get a lot more applications, we can be more selective. But if this year we're saying, hey, we didn't get all 10 booth applications, do we accept these because we didn't get all 10? And then these people apply next year and we have to then use these rules. Do we want to just set that as being a rule now? Like we're really aiming towards this to be something homemade, something that you're putting your own time and effort in to give back to the community, which I think is okay, but I think that if we establish those rules now, we have to go forward with that in the future. And I just would hate for us to say, hey, yeah, let's do it this year, but then not let them next year for these exact reasons.
Yeah, I agree. Whatever decision should be made this year and then stuck to, so that there isn't some explaining. I'd stay away from, I guess the way I describe it is kind of kitschy stuff.
Well, I don't know if we want to qualify things as kitsch or not, because like, we all have different tastes, but I think the handmade kind of qualifier is one that, when we used to do the Square Fair, that was what we learned with that committee was you kind of set the expectations of both the vendors and the customers or the visitors. And so, if you do have some things that are not clearly handmade, then people think maybe it's just a resale item, or, why am I attending this if I'm spending all my, if you have someone who's worked really hard to hand make something from a material that they have found or byproducts or whatever, and then you have someone who's maybe putting a little less effort into applying a design to a pre-made product, sometimes that can lead to dissatisfaction amongst the vendors too. So what I consider kitsch might not be what you consider kitsch, might not be what someone else thinks is hip. So I think that's less of a concern as it is just the handmade and local products aspect of it.
I agree.
Well,
I think that it's, sorry, go ahead, Emily.
No, go ahead.
No, I just personally, like, I think that, going into this, I'm the kind of person who's like, yes, 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 let's do everything. I'm so like a yes person. And then I really need to be grounded and taken back and really think things and process it. And it really makes sense. I think that the whole purpose of this was to give local people an avenue to show their craft to the community, and, to have that really be the purpose, to highlight what they do in their own time in a hobby. And I think those two particular vendors, I just don't think they're necessarily what we all pictured at the beginning. And I do think that we could fine tune this in the years to come and still get a really good turnout. And I don't think that, I wouldn't feel bad saying no with that being our reason. And I'm a person who feels bad saying no about everything. So that says something.
I think that's a great way to describe it, Sarah. And what kind of listening to the conversation, I think rather than just strictly following back with questions for number 5, I would feel more comfortable kind of giving those 2 applications that we're talking about kind of a no for this year, and then just explain the reasoning and ask maybe in the future if you could provide us more information on how you process your materials. It might help.
Yeah, I think for me, like Kathleen, when you were talking about, locally sourced material, like handcrafted, I think something that might be helpful is like actually defining what we mean by handmade. Because, all of these applications check the box that said my products are handmade or created locally. And maybe it's defining that more, like coming from locally sourced materials or byproducts, or, however we view it. Because I do think you're right. It's like you have a different reaction to these materials as being like, oh, they don't feel as handmade. And maybe if we can put into words what we mean by handmade in the future, it might help kind of eliminate some of these that could feel commercially produced or something like that.
I think that's a really good idea, and we can work on that for the next round. And I think, I don't want to knock, I think there is a place for this type of product. I just don't know that it is necessarily what I don't know that.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I'm struggling.
No. I know what you're trying to say. Like, it's all stuff I would buy. I think that it's neat. I do think there's a market for it. But I think that when we set out to have craft vendors, our goal holistically was to like support the actual crafter and, bring them and spotlight them to our community. And, these crafts are good, they're quality, they're great. People are going to buy them. They're going to be successful at craft fairs, but that wasn't what this necessarily was supposed to be. So that's why I think that like I'm okay with it, because it's not that they're not going to be successful in other venues. It just didn't happen to work with what our mission was for this.
Agreed.
I would also add, yeah, absolutely, I agree. And I would add these two vendors, and we only had one applicant for Mansfield, but just also these two vendors are outside of our community. We really, the primary goal was to highlight our community. So it's just one more element that for me, it makes it okay to say no.
Yeah, and I also think that starting with these particular, so we would be down to 7, these 7 would really give people who attend the festival an idea like, oh, hey, I do make something that I could next year apply, and hopefully we do get more Mansfield people. I think, we definitely in years to come would have to bump them to the front of who we accept, because that is the purpose of what Celebrate Mansfield is. But it's a good starting point to represent exactly the types of things that we're looking for and that we want to give back to the community.
Okay, so it sounds like we'll go forward with those 7 applicants that we mentioned, and then turn down 2 applicants for this year, but then maybe rework the application for next year. So they could always reapply and provide more information to clarify really what they're doing. But I think it sounds like with these 7, we'll have a pretty good kind of showing for the craft booths, and I think there's a nice variety of products. Great. So what are we on to now? Let me go back to another PDF. Oh, the opening ceremony.
I am actually just looking at the time, going to suggest we table that. Actually, never mind. Let's go through it really quickly. Sorry, never mind.
I just have to say, I have animals at home that I need to take care of. So I can't really hang out here much longer, especially with the heat of the day. I need to make sure they have some cool water and that none of them have died from heat. So
no problem. I'm gonna go I'll go super quick, and if you do need to leave, it's not a problem.
Okay.
So I drafted just an idea, because we talked about at the last meeting these different ideas of what could come together. So I drafted a concept. One thing I would say is that the athlete in this particular concept could be any celebrity or local official or someone that we want to highlight at the festival. So I think that this could be very versatile if we wanted to go this route. But I am going to turn it over to Kathleen, because she just talked to Kyle today about Yukon athletics.
Let me unmute myself. So I thought Denise came up with a really great format for an opening ceremony, and I think it makes a lot of sense. The one thing that I was thinking about a little bit was bringing in, assuming that we can find someone who would appear and that we can afford their appearance fee, because now they would be able to charge an appearance fee, is that I wondered if it might have the desired response, based on, some of the student athletes barely got to interact with the community last year because of COVID. Everything was very different, so they might not have even really gotten to see the town. But years past, we had a greater involvement with Yukon athletics, and so I spoke with Kyle about it today, and I reached out to someone at Yukon athletics, and we have a meeting on Friday to discuss having them, whether or not they can have a bigger presence at the festival. In the past, we had a booth for them, and depending on the year, it would be a rotating, I don't want to say cast, but the teams would come in and out and do meet and greets, and depending on the team and what season we were in, they might have schedule cards that they would sign. You could get your photo taken. Now, NCAA rules have changed since then, so that I'm not 100% up to speed on what they can and cannot do, so it might not look exactly the same like it did before those rules changed, but maybe it's something different where it's just the Husky costume mascot, and you get your photo taken or something. But I think there's interest. I don't have details yet, but there's definitely some interest in having that aspect again. In which case I might suggest that like maybe for the opening ceremony we focus more on people who have a more authentic connection with the community. You know, I'm just scooting back to the outline. You know, it's very brief, so we wouldn't be asking people for like a huge commitment. And I think maybe there might be somebody that we might be able to ask to do that might just feel a little bit more comfortable. So that's just a suggestion.
I agree. I like that suggestion, and maybe we could, in the sake of time for right now, maybe have that be homework. Maybe like, you know, anybody who can think of Mansfield, who's someone that you think of that is connected to this community, that we can kind of brainstorm and maybe collectively kind of come up with people we might want to reach out to. I think that's a great idea. And I, again, I'm one of those people that like, once I hear the other side of things, it makes a lot of sense to me, because you're right. The community might be really connected to these athletes, but they're not connected to the community. And we're celebrating Mansfield, not Mansfield celebrating other things. So it takes me a while to spin those things around. Kathleen, you're my yin to my yang, and I like need that. But I see what you're saying. And, you know, to find someone who's a lot more personally invested in Mansfield, that again, people might know, who can just, you know, who every day celebrates what our town is. So I like that idea. It could be maybe a business, something, anything, but yeah, homework.
I like the idea of the homework, and then I can also get some more details on what, if any, you know, other presents we'll have. But I do think there are students who are like connected and feel, you know, part of the community, including the athletics. I think though it's just so hard this year because, you know, you think about freshmen that started fall of 2019. I mean, they were here for like 4 months and then the whole world turned upside down. So it's really only, so they're juniors, going to be juniors now. So it's just like, I think it's just a weird time for everybody, but for students to really have had that like college town campus experience, like I don't know that it's as strong this year. So, but
and I would just
well, no, I feel bad because Sarah's the yes one, and I'm like no.
But that's why it's a good balance. But I'm saying that's why it's such a good balance, because I think that like I see the value in both. And I think that if you're going to talk the athletics and they still want to have some form of a presence, I think that it's still going to be valuable because it is an important thing of who we are. It is part of Mansfield as an identity. I think, but just for like the welcome, you're right. You know, think of a tree branch or, you know, someone who roots in our community a little bit more.
Yeah, and thank you, Sarah. That's exactly what I was going to say. Kathleen and I talked about this earlier. We did feel in 2019 like athletics was missing, and it is part of the identity. Kind of Yukon athletics is definitely a part of this town. So I'm really excited that they want to have a presence with a booth because we didn't have anything in 2019. So I think this would be a big step.
Okay,
so
it
should just qualify. Like I haven't actually confirmed a booth yet, but there's at
but
least not a hard no.
Right. It's in discussions. It's in the works. We know if it's important. I mean, and again, even if it's not necessarily a physical presence, if we could get some of those cards, some of those calendars, some of those things, those are important, and people like those. It's they like to have that. So.
And I think we'll figure something out. It will be good. But I do think, Denise, that you did a really nice job with this opening ceremony outline. And I think once Amanda's back in town, I can, you know, we haven't connected over the summer, but I think she seemed very interested in having the E.O. Smith participate in some way, and that this looks like a doable thing for them given the timing with the school year, and they're facing the same thing as Yukon, where they have all these students who have had a very, very different musical education experience than older classes. So I think you did a really nice job.
Thank you. And I hope it works out. I I wanted to make sure we talked about it first, but I will follow up with Denise on the poem. That'll be kind of a priority for me this week, just to get that started. And then I was just going to recommend that we table the following items for the next meeting, because we are meeting in 2 weeks. The only thing that might happen, I'll be scheduling a meeting with emergency services to talk about the site plan. So I might kind of ask their opinion too on the vaccine clinic and where they think that might fit best into our plan.
Great. So I'm thinking homework for August 25th is for all of us to think of a possible intro speaker, and then we'll kind of reconnect about the site plan and the low waste pledge at that meeting as well.
Yes, and Ginny and I had a great conversation about that. So I'm going to put those at the very top of the next agenda to make sure we start with them. And thank you. I know that the craft booths took a lot of this meeting, so I appreciate your input.
Great. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I guess I'll second.
Great. So I think we're probably all in favor of adjourning. So we'll adjourn this meeting so we can make
Have
sure
a
those
good
dogs
day.
are okay. Yeah.
No, it's not dogs, it's sheep and chickens.
Sheep and
So,
chickens.
yeah.
Oh
yes,
my
so I got to get
gosh.
going. We'll see you.
Good.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye,
Jenny.
Jenny. Bye, everyone.
Have a good
Bye,
evening.
everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your trip.